I use Unity, and it's a good engine. I like it, but I only use it because it's what I was taught. And I don't really want to be stuck using one engine forever. So I want to learn something new. And the management issues with Unity didn't help. So what engine do I learn? I mean, there are a lot of good choices. We have Unreal, Game Maker, Construct, Scratch. I'm sure they all have pros. They definitely all have their cons, but none of these really get my attention apart from Unreal, but that's a story for another day. So I'm going to try and learn Godot. So why Godot? Well, it's free, it's open source. So unlike most popular engines, it's free forever. Even if your game gets 1 million downloads, it's free. It's also supposedly easy to learn, although this video will be putting that claim to the test. It's also very similar to Unity, apparently, which should make my experience better since I already have some experience with Unity. So is that it then? I'm just going to learn Godot and call it a day? No, I want to prove that learning a game engine isn't as challenging as it looks, and that anyone can do it. So I'm going to do this by attempting to learn Godot and remaking my first ever game in just 24 hours. So to begin with, I decided to just boot up Godot for the first time and just look around, see if I could recognize anything. But after minimal success and wasting a precious 14 minutes just by looking around, I decided the best route would be to consume some Godot tutorials. So I'll be gambling the next 2 hours of the challenge by consuming these tutorials, and who better than the GOAT himself, Rakis. So past half watches these two videos, let me explain how this challenge will work. So to make it fair to me and to make it possible, the time will only count when I am learning. If I take breaks, the time doesn't count. However, if I spend any time learning Godot, I must take the time off my total. Right, so 2 hours later, I finished tutorial 1. It was only meant to be an hour long, and with one tutorial left, they're really going to start eating into my time. But I can definitely say I have a better understanding of the Godot workflow now that I finished that video. I don't want to say it's that different from Unity, but it's not what I had in mind, and I'm not 100% sold on it just yet. Video 2 was a lot shorter, and I was able to skip a lot since the first few segments were just common programming knowledge, but we still pushed into hour 3. But now I think I've exhausted enough information to try and make my first game. So Jump Ball. Jump Ball is the name of my first game I ever made. I made it around a year ago now as part of my college work. It took me 2 months or more to make, but I did work on it very inconsistently, so I might have been able to make it a lot quicker. But even though it's my first game, I am still very proud of it, and I honestly think I did quite well for a first game. But now maybe I could do it quicker, or maybe even better. So let's get to work. So, after booting Jump Ball and seeing how the game should behave, I started by getting the asset pack I used for the original game, link in the description. This was relatively easy and only took a few seconds. After, I tried working on the player, but this is where the issues of my game development skills started to show. All of my sprites for the character were stored in 480 by 480 because when I originally made it, I was dumb and didn't realize that 16 by 16 would work and that I didn't need to upscale. So this means that Jump Ball is made from a mixture of 16 by 16 and larger assets, which isn't good. So instead, I had to use the Unity tile map to compare what the sprite size should be in Godot relative to one tile. And after a few minutes of messing around with the sizes, I got a pretty accurately sized character. I then moved over to writing the movement script, which was actually relatively easy thanks to the Brackies tutorial. I just set up the inputs and then used the template kindly provided by Godot to get basic movement. I also then just spent a few minutes messing around with the values so it felt just like Jump Ball. However, when making Jump Ball, I got a lot of complaints that the jump felt too floaty. So with my modding knowledge of game development, I guess I could fix this. So I decided to make the physics more standard with a typical platformer. So now you can adjust how high you jump by holding space. I don't know if this makes it better or worse, but it's there. So after getting working movement, I jumped straight into animation. Obviously starting easy with walking animations and axis flipping, which were super easy and went great. But when I moved into the programming of the jumping animations, I found more trouble. I didn't know what parameters I could use to do the jumping. I couldn't stop them from looking weird or taking too long to execute. It was just a whole mess. And I started to get frustrated. So I took the executive action to just keep it simple with walking animations and save myself the trouble. Right, hour 6. Probably the worst spent hour in this video. Everything started okay. I decided to just start by copying the tile map from Unity to Godot. This, however, quickly took a turn for the worst when I realized I didn't like the default tile map setup. So I decided to move everything around in Pixel Edit so I could use the tiles easily. However, for whatever reason, this whole process took me around 20 minutes. So big time waster. Well, at least I couldn't waste any more time, right? Oh, I decided to figure out how to use the Godot alternative to Unity Raw tiles, which, if you don't know, just allows me to place a tile and it automatically connects it to whatever tile is around it. So it just like looks nice and it's a big time saver. But I failed miserably to figure out how to do this out in Godot. And I have no idea if I just did it wrong or if Godot terrain tiles aren't the thing I was looking for, but it just didn't work. So I had to go back to the old-fashioned way and do everything manually. After I had a few tiles set up, I decided to go work on the platforms. In Jump Ball, platforms can disappear and reappear by ticking a checkbox in the inspector, making it really easy to change. So I decided to just program this function in Godot, which did take me a bit, but that's just because I had to figure out how all the systems communicated in Godot. So after I got that down, it ended up with a decent product in the end. So I guess not everything went terribly. Okay, I'm going to be totally honest. At this point, I was about to quit. I was tired and frustrated since learning a whole new engine and jumping straight into making a game without any breathing room is challenging. And I had to get the lasers that feature predominantly in Jump Ball working. However, I couldn't figure out how to get the instantiation to work with the rigid body I attached to the lasers. And, well, I was just getting whatever you call this. So I was so very close to just calling it a day, quitting and editing it. But the next day, I decided to give it a go and work on the lasers. I went back to basics and I removed the rigid body that was causing me so much trouble. And I just moved the lasers utilizing the transform provided by the Node 2D. And it worked. The lasers moved. They had no collision yet, but it worked. So then, since I had that working, I started working on making the tiles a little bit more accurate to the positions in Unity, which leads us nicely into... Okay, so hour 8, huh? Not gonna lie, when I came up with this idea, I didn't realize how much work would go into working on something for 24 non-consecutive hours. It would have probably been a lot easier to just do 24 hours, do what I could do in a day, and call it quits then. But I didn't. So I have working lasers, working movement. I made spikes and the moving spikes for the beginning of the game. So this is where I call it quits. So for our final product, we have Jump Ball Godot Edition, a game where you can walk, jump, miss jumps, make jumps, dodge lasers, which may or may not do anything. And last but not least, you might want to avoid dying since touching a spike kind of crashes your game. But hey, here we have it. Half of a Jump Ball level created in Godot. It took me around 8 or 9 non-consecutive hours, meaning I have less than half a day's worth of knowledge, and I still have a game to my name. I mean, it's not really a game, it's more just some sprites and a few lines of code thrown together, but I was getting too frustrated trying to learn a new game engine, scripting language, and making a game all in one go. But I don't think this video or challenge has gone to waste. I may have not made a full game, but I have definitely learned a lot about Godot, but also about game development and programming in general. I might even continue this someday. And is learning a new game engine easy? No, but it's not impossible. Learning anything is a challenge. But look what I made in a couple hours with minimal effort. Imagine what you could do if you put days, weeks, or realistically months into learning an engine. But just because I gave up doesn't mean you should. You also shouldn't pressure yourself into not taking your time to do something. But hey, it is what it is. So what are my final thoughts on Godot? Honestly, it's a lot better than I thought it would be. But I do feel like it was missing a lot of features that I really like in Unity. But I also feel like Unity could use a lot of features that Godot has to offer, like signals. I like those. But will I be moving from Godot to Unity? No, at least not anytime soon. I might in the future. I will probably be trying to learn it properly at some point, but I probably have tainted my view on Godot a little bit by trying to push myself to learn it so quickly. So I just don't think it's for me right now. But that doesn't mean it's bad. I do really like the engine. and I think it has a lot of potential, and I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on it to see what it turns into in the future. But for me, for now, I'll be staying with Unity. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider to subscribe or like, or just leave a comment. This is a brand new channel, so anything helps. And if you, for whatever reason, want to play Jump Ball for yourself, the link will be in the description, along with the link for any of my other games, as well as any tutorials I used while making this video. See you in the next one. Bye bye.